Hi everyone. Grant Green's version of Miles Davis's tune So What first appeared on Green's 1962 album Sunday Mornin'. While Green retains the 32-bar AABA form of Davis's original, he makes some minor adjustments to the melody and transposes the head down a major second, with the progression now moving between C minor 11 in the A sections and D flat minor 11 in the B section. Green's solo is played over 4 repeats of the 32-bar form and is preceded by this E-flat major 7 arpeggio, the initial E-flat note of which is approached from above by an incomplete upper neighbour note prefix and from below by the arpeggio's own 7th degree D. While this grouping of notes is commonly used in jazz as enclosures, here they can also be heard as a motivic reference to these notes of the head, which approach using contrary motion, the 11th of the underlying harmony. Green also uses as a motif throughout his solo this figure, which instead of being approached as in the head by a leap of a perfect fourth, is preceded by a minor second, creating a complete stepwise 6-note ascent. Often through his solo, Green uses this 6-note motif beginning from a key's leading note, before then proceeding with the notes of the key's tonic pentachord. During the solo's initial A section, Green connects his solo to the head by melodically using not only the 6-note motif, which in this section always outlines C minor's tonic pentachord, but also rhythmically by using only the following note values and groupings, all of which are taken from the head. The head is also referenced here by Green's use of this rhythm and this initial grouping of a second followed by a descending leap of a fourth. The notes of these bars can be heard in several ways: as a long-range line moving from E-flat to G, as a compound melody using an upper line moving from E-flat to G and a lower line from D to D, and as an A diminished arpeggio with intervening notes typically forming vertical thirds, but here also a second. This A note is the first time during the solo which an A of any sort has been used, suggesting here either the raised 6th degree of the C melodic minor scale or C Dorian. The final C note of the A diminished arpeggio forms part of this 6-note motif, which here again outlines the notes of C minor's tonic pentachord, but which has here been extended to 7 notes with the inclusion of this F sharp. Green then continues the line using this fragment of an ascending C melodic minor scale, before then using a long-range line descending through the notes of the C Dorian mode with an added D flat note. The line concludes using a compound melody moving in thirds to C. Moving into the solo's first B section, Green uses the 6-note motif now outlining the notes of D flat minor's tonic pentachord. The motif leads on to the following line, which may be heard as a long-range line moving from C flat to B flat, a compound melody using the long-range line as its upper melody and a lower line moving from A flat to B flat, and as an E-flat minor arpeggio with intervening notes typically forming vertical thirds, but here a 4th and 6th. The concluding notes of this line also introduce this triplet rhythmic motif, which Green also frequently uses. The melody of these bars, which is played in the time of 11 quarter note beats, is here played in the time of 9, with all notes now played as 8th notes. This line then concludes with the triplet rhythmic motif before completing the section with an ascent and descent through D flat minor's tonic pentachord, the descending G flat of which is omitted. Green begins the final A section of the first 32-bar form using the same E-flat major 7 arpeggio, which is again preceded by the incomplete upper neighbour note and E-flat major's own 7th degree. Green then uses the same notes and rhythm as this segment of the solo's first long-range line. As with many of his other uses of previous material, here to avoid identical repetition, Green begins on a different beat of the bar, where previously the line began on the offbeat of quarter note beat 2, for example, it now begins on the offbeat of quarter note beat 4. Through these bars, Green uses incomplete 6-note motifs, one outlining the incomplete tonic pentachord of E-flat major, and the other the incomplete tonic pentachord of C minor. In both instances, Green omits the relevant pentachord's 4th degree. Beginning the second AABA section, Green uses this line, which may be heard as a long-range line moving from G to F, concluding with the triplet rhythmic motif, and the compound melody using the long-range line as its upper melody, and the lower line moving from D to G. Here, Green uses the same incomplete 6-note motifs as here, but curtails the C minor pentachord, moving only to its 3rd degree. He then uses another long-range line, here moving between E flat and D. And here he connects using a descending leap of a 3rd, the 6-note motif outlining C minor's tonic pentachord, to these notes, which may be heard as a tonic pentachord fragment. Taking the supertonic, mediant and subdominant notes of the ascending 6-note motif and the final 2 notes of the incomplete descent, Green then repeats this idea in the following bars and here to conclude the 2nd A section. Green here also uses another 6-note motif outlining C minor's tonic pentachord and this figure, which recalls the rhythm and melodic contour of previous descending lines. Beginning the solo's 2nd B section, Green uses a D flat minor 11 arpeggio before connecting the triplet rhythmic motif used sometimes descending, sometimes ascending, in a line which essentially moves between D flat minor's 9th, 5th and 13th degrees. Leading into the final A section of the 2nd 32-bar form, Green again uses an E flat major arpeggio, which he repeats here, now beginning from its 7th degree. From here, Green shifts between the notes E flat and D, C minor's 3rd and 9th degrees, and uses a variant of the triplet rhythmic motif, which for each repeat retains the final triplet and quarter note beats, but alters the initial rhythms. Here, to conclude the 2nd 32-bar form, Green again uses the 6-note motif outlining C minor's tonic pentachord before beginning the 3rd repeat with a descending E flat major 9th arpeggio, the notes of which are decorated with intervening vertical thirds. Here, using the same rhythm as this bar, Green outlines a G minor 7 arpeggio, the harmony which is continued through the following bars. Green then leads into the B section with this 6-note motif, here outlining the tonic pentachord of A flat minor, and through these bars he again shifts between 2 notes which he rhythmically alters, before again using the 6-note motif, now outlining the notes of D flat minor's tonic pentachord. Here he uses an F flat major arpeggio, and here a compound melody whose upper line outlines an E flat minor arpeggio and lower line an A flat major arpeggio. Green begins the final A section of this 32-bar form with another E flat major 7 arpeggio, the initial note of which is again preceded by an incomplete upper neighbour note prefix and its own 7th degree. He also again uses here an A diminished arpeggio decorated with intervening notes forming vertical thirds, and here a 2nd. Green concludes the 3rd AABA form with a C minor arpeggio with added 11th, which he proceeds with a series of triplets on the arpeggio's 5th degree. The final 32-bar form begins with Green outlining the notes of G minor and G minor 7th harmony. Through these bars, as with the beginning of the solo's initial A section, Green uses only rhythms and note values found in the head. These ascending arpeggios, for example, are all preceded with an 8th note rest and begin on different offbeats of the bar. Here on the offbeat of quarter note beats 3, 2, 4, and here with the arpeggio's tonic note decorated on beat 1. Through the 2nd A section, Green again uses complete and incomplete 6-note pentachord motifs, all outlining C minor's tonic pentachord. The final B section begins with Green repeating D flat minor's 11th, before he then uses an ascending incomplete F flat major 7 arpeggio, leading to the 6-note motif, here outlining D flat minor's tonic pentachord. With this motif, however, Green articulates part of its ascent with a triplet rhythm. A 6-note motif again outlining D flat minor's tonic pentachord is used here, before Green then uses here a D minor arpeggio as part of this line, which forms a link between the D flat minor arpeggio contained within the 6-note motif and the E flat major arpeggio beginning the final A section. The initial note of the E flat major 7 arpeggio is again preceded by the incomplete upper neighbour note and E flat's own 7th degree. Through this final section, Green again uses the 6-note motif outlining the notes of C minor's tonic pentachord, and he concludes his solo with another A diminished arpeggio, which is again partially decorated with intervening notes forming vertical thirds. I hope you found this useful. Thanks for watching. See you next time.